So they came to this country. They came to this country in their 20s, and they didn't really understand American culture. They knew Liberian culture. So in essence, they raised us as Liberian children in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York. There were a bunch of other immigrants with me, but there were also Black Americans and white Americans and Asian Americans and all kinds of other people, right? So I didn't understand American culture. I didn't understand Black American culture, but when people looked at me, they assumed that they knew who I was because they looked at me and assumed that I was Black American. So I had to learn how to navigate a lot of different cultures and a lot of different expectations. The way that showed up in school was my parents, our value system is God first, family second, education third, and it's always that order. And so I loved learning because it was in me. That's what was shared with me with my mom and my dad. And so it wasn't necessarily a value system that and I'm sorry now, if you hear my dog in the background, he's being a big baby. And so you will hear him get louder and louder because I'm not paying attention to him. He thinks it's about him. Anyway, back to you. So the students who I was going to school with, they didn't necessarily share some of the same values that we did in my particular culture. And so they saw me pursuing education as me being phony or me trying to be white, right? So there was a lot of me trying to prove that I'm Black enough, that I'm not only Black on the outside, I'm Black on the inside, that I don't think I'm better than them, and all these other things that come into play when you've internalized oppression and you don't think that you're good enough than what you assume the world tells you you're good enough to have, right? So there was always this struggle. And one of the ways that the struggle manifested was through bullying. So every day I got into a fight, a literal fist fight, because, kids would circle me, they would jump me, and they thought I was better, and all this other kind of foolishness because of the way I talked, the way I acted, etc. My parents thought I was just making this stuff up. They were like, you got to be doing something to these kids. They can't just be fighting you because you like school, because they just couldn't understand why people would want to behave this way. And so it wasn't until one day that my dad came to the school, and I happened to be in the dean's office because I had just jumped in the bathroom. Now, let it be known, I wasn't just getting my butt whipped. I was whipping butt too, but because I was defending myself. But, sometimes when you have like 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 people on you, sometimes you don't win. Anyway, I was in the dean's office, and he brought me in and he told me to calm down, and because I was very, very angry. And my dad just happened to come up and he was like, what are you doing in the dean's office? And so the dean Brooksmith explained, that goes to show you how when things impact your life in the educational arena, you can remember a name. I will forever remember Dean Brooksmith. So he said, yeah, your daughter's been having some issues because, students here, they're always teasing her because, she really likes to learn, and she's always answering the teacher's questions, and she's always got a book in her hand, and, all these other kinds of things. And it actually puts her on the outside, and it makes students not like her. And so my father, for the first time looked at me and understood, in talking to Dean Brooksmith, what was really happening. And in that moment, they decided they were going to put me in Catholic school. So now that takes me to high school. So I left Brooklyn and went to school in Manhattan. I went to Cathedral High School, which is in right near the UN. It's in the Archdiocese building down in the city. So it's like a high profile kind of school because of where it's located. And that was the first time surrounded by all of these Latina sisters, these girls, these amazing girls who had culture like mine, who had love and appreciation like mine, that I was embraced and celebrated for being a nerd. And so that was where I was able to finally be myself. I could let down some of my defensiveness and my anger and my frustration because my Christina Rivera's, Patricia Tobar's, my people, whether they were Dominican or Ecuadorian or Puerto Rican, they fully embraced me. Now, they didn't love each other because they had their own inner ethnic things going on because they were from different Spanish cultures or Hispanic cultures. but they were fine with me. So I was good. And so in them nurturing me and nurturing, my desire for learning, that was what helped to propel me when it was time to go to college. That and the fact that my mom was like, and my dad were like, you're going to college. It was never a question about whether or not I was going to go. The question was, where are you going to go? And so in trying to figure out where I was going to go, I didn't really know. I didn't have guidance because I was the first one in my family who would have had the opportunity to go to college. Because when my parents came to this country, my mom started at a community college, but she got pregnant with me and then, left school so that she could be a full-time parent and focus on me and then my siblings when they came. So my mom wasn't really able to help me understand. So I went to the Barron's Guide of Colleges. Albright was in the beginning, Haverford was at the end, in the middle, and Swarthmore was at the end. And that's how I applied to college. And Albright came first with the package, the money, and the acceptance. So I just went to Albright, sight unseen, first day of orientation. They told me Reading was a city. I need all of y'all to understand, Reading is not a city. When you come from Brooklyn, New York, that is not a city. That is, I don't know what it is. It's not a city though. That part was not true. So, I went and had to understand what it was to be in a school where all of these people from all over the world were attending, but the KKK were alive and well in Reading. And I didn't understand what that meant. So first day of orientation, turn on the television, I get there, on the Access channel, they're having a parade on Main Street. And so me learning how to navigate with racism, felt like on my neck, just really present, because it never really felt as present before in New York. It was there, I'm sure, but it wasn't as clear as it was when I was in Reading. And so I was there and developed lots of support systems. I realized early on that because of the kind of culture I come from, it's very communal. The only way I know how to survive is in community, right? It's in culture, it's in family. So I found somebody to be my mama. She was the one of the psychology instructors and actually became my advisor. I made her my advisor. And she became Mama Ingram and is Mama Ingram to this day. As old as I am and as old as she is. And I also recognized that I needed to be part of a group, right? So I joined the African American Society and other groups there and eventually took on leadership roles in those groups. But that was what kind of helped me to get through college, having community. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do after I graduated from college, but I graduated and then entered into social work because really for most people who were my major, psychology and political science, I was a dual major, you really either were going into pre-law or you were going into the helping field. I didn't want to go into pre-law, so I went into the helping field. And for me, that was social work. And so I did that for a while. And a friend of mine was like, why don't you have your master's yet? Like this was about 7 or 8 years after I graduated from college. And they were like, why don't you have your master's yet? And I just never thought about it, right? I never thought about the fact that I would need my master's in this field because I was still trying to feel my way through. But I applied to Bryn Mawr, got in and completed their Master of Social Service program. Okay. The entire time, right, elementary to middle school, it was about the social engagement and how they were stressing me out. High school, it was about me finding a new social group and them loving on me still doing well academically. College, it was, I did well. I didn't do as well as I could have because socially, that's when I got into hiccups, right? I found my group around leadership, but socially, that's when I got into a relationship. And that thing went left quickly and it derailed me. Now, I get to graduate school and I don't really need as much of a large social community, but I do have my 2 friends who are also going through their master's programs. And we would study together, write our papers together. We did everything together. And that's how we got ourselves through. All up until this time, I just assumed myself to be an amazing student because I have had good history. I had a good track record. I'm graduating on time. I'm not being left behind. I'm not experiencing any of those things. And then I get into this doctoral program because, again, another friend says to me, why don't you have your doctorate? I don't know. I should, because I always thought of myself as like, I would have my doctorate because when I was younger and I was imagining playing, I was Dr. Pamela Watson. I don't know who Pamela Watson was, but that was my made up name, Pamela Watson. And she was Dr. Pamela Watson, and she was in charge of the school. She made her sister in charge of teaching, but she was over her sister because she's older. You know, I'm older. So I made her my teacher and I would be the principal. So I knew something about it, right? So why not go after your doctorate? Okay, cool. What is it that I want to do? I am at this point a consultant, and I'm helping to build the capacity of organizations to do their work and to do it better. So I decide to find a humanistic program that does that kind of work. And there's only one program in the country at the time. There was only one in the country, and that program was in San Francisco. So I decided to go to Saybrook University in San Francisco. And I would commute back and forth, and it was insanity. It was crazy. I got through the coursework absolutely no problem, because again, guys, I'm a pretty good, solid student. I can do that coursework. I get through the coursework, and then I hit my first research sequence where it's time for me to start working on my dissertation. My academic advisor says to me, Kim, you are an amazing lyrical writer. I want you to develop a stronger academic voice. That's what she said. Now, that probably sounds reasonable to most of y'all. To me, I heard and translated in here, and it came out of here. You can't write word for damn. I don't know how you got into this program. It's a little bit off, Kim, a little bit extra, because that's not what she said, but that's what I heard. And because I internalized her feedback in such a way, it stopped me dead in my tracks. For 2.5 years, I developed a writing paralysis. Okay. So I'm in the process of this dissertation, can't write, and timing out. So in undergrad and graduate school, you can time out based on money. In doctoral programs, you time out based on time. Like if you don't get your stuff done at a regular pace, you could actually max out your time. And then if you want to continue, you've got to start all over again. So I was maxing out on time because now I'm at year 7.5. And by now I'm supposed to be done. So this is what ended up happening when I transitioned into a new program. And then I'll talk to you about the transition. But here is the opening to my dissertation. Now, at year 7.5, when I realized I was maxing out on time, I talked to, at this point, I'm at Monco, and my former supervisor, who's no longer here, VP Swanson, she said, Kim, what's going on with you in this doctorate? I said, Catherine, I don't know, girl, because I don't know. She said, well, Kim, the interesting thing is, when I looked you up to hire you for the position, you were all over Saybrook's page. I mean, you're all over their website. You're wonderfully talking about their program and everything. They're getting great marketing material out of you. So why are you not finished? And I said, I don't know. I can't write anymore. I can talk, I can speak, I can think, but I can't get it out. And I just don't know. And she said, well, I really need you to figure this out because you need to be done with your doctorate. So I had a conversation with Jesus, how we sometimes do that when things happen and we get up against the wall and we're like, can we go into the closet together and have a conversation? So that's what I did. I had a little come to Jesus moment, and God was a witness, and so was the Holy Spirit. They both visited. Mm-hmm. And so in that conversation, what I heard was, okay, we sorry. Yeah, yeah, oh, it's bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. Mm-hmm. Yep, all of that. Now get up and go finish. Because we didn't bring you here for you to just sit here and walk around here with all this money and no degree. We wouldn't have brought you here if you couldn't do this. You can do this. So I talked to Catherine and told her what happened. She said, okay, so what do you want to do? At that point in time, Immaculata was starting its program partnership with Monco. And so she said, apply to Immaculata. So I applied to Immaculata. She wrote me a quick reference. My other academic dean at Saybrook wrote me a quick reference, and I got in. And they were like, you're willing to do all of this coursework all over again to get this degree? I was like, I have no choice, right? I promise you I can get this coursework done in 1.5 years. I can get it done. I got it done. It was insane, but I got it done. And then I got to the research sequence again. And when I got to the research sequence, it was a little different this time. And I think the reason why it was different is because what I was studying was different than the first time. The second time around, I was studying me. The second time around, I heard what my advisor had said to me at the previous program about having a lyrical voice. And I realized I needed to find a methodology that allowed my voice to shine, as opposed to finding something that would not allow me to be my natural self, my authentic self. And so this that I posted up here is the opening to my dissertation. A Black woman, first generation doctoral student, single parent of a young son, student loan debt twice my total mortgage and rising, crisis of confidence, 2-year writing paralysis, health challenges, launching a new consulting practice with several clients, the recession. Leaner budgets meant losing all but 2 clients. Transition from full-time consulting to full-time employment in higher ed. Imposter syndrome, a marriage, a divorce, a personal crisis, 11 years pursuing my doctorate, 2 different doctoral programs, deep levels of fatigue, yet hope persists. Okay. So in that opening, there are a lot of these roadblocks and strategies that I've outlined for you guys. The things that I use to get me through, the things that I use, my entire educational period became really, really strong. But one thing surpassed all of them, and we'll talk about that in the end. Support systems. I talked about from elementary school through doctoral programs, I needed to have support systems to get me through. Reaching out for help. Hiding is so easy to do. And I did it often, especially in that 2.5-year period where I couldn't write and I was dealing with the crisis of confidence. I wanted to just hide, but I had to force myself to reach out for help and not worry about those things that sometimes go through your mind, like, oh, they're going to think I'm a failure or I'm stupid or I shouldn't be here, or all those other thoughts, because that's furthest from the truth. Networking, talking to people in your program, talking to people in your classes, talking to people in the college helps you to understand, one, what resources are out there, but 2, puts your name out there so that when resources become available, people can help you make linkages. There was a program interruption and for me, and in fact, it took me 11 years to finish my degree. But the thing is, sometimes you have to interrupt your program in order for you to press your reset button and get back to where you need to be so that you can become successful. Imposter syndrome is real, but it doesn't have to be so overwhelmingly paralyzing that you can't move on. Yes, it's real that you will sometimes have these thoughts in your mind where you're like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. They're going to realize that I can't do this, and they're going to get me out of this program. Even when you are done with school and you're working, sometimes that happens to you professionally. Okay, acknowledge it. Say it's real, say that thought is real, but then you say, this thought has no true value in my life, right? This thought has no true worth in my life. So I need to get rid of it because it's not grounded in anything. Everything that I've done has shown that I am successful, that I am capable. A lot of times our past and our will play on us in our present, right? We'll think, I come from these roots, this background, these beginnings, and we will allow them to dictate whether or not the present we have or the future we're driving for is possible. We have to always remember balance, that where we started does not have to determine where we end up, but only we can control that. Advantages versus disadvantages. Look, I come from a background where my family, my parents were born into wealth, but when they came here, they didn't have wealth. So we ended up in situational poverty. I also come from an experience where I have to deal with racism. We all have to deal with racism, unfortunately, but that I have to deal with that. And that's a part of my reality. That does not stop my show. that if I allow it to stop my show, if I allow it to dictate where I can go, these disadvantages, these momentary, what feels like oppressive barriers, then that will dictate it for me. Again, I'm in control of my life. Does it sometimes mean I have to take some circuitous route to get somewhere? Sometimes, yeah, I can't go straight, but that doesn't mean that I don't have to take a route to get there, because a route still will make itself present. The investment in myself. No one is ever going to invest in you more than you, not even maybe the parents or the family or the whomever's in your life who love you tremendously. They will love you in a way that you can't even define, but even they can't invest in you the way that you can invest in you. Because when you're up late at night, even though your mom might be up with you, falling asleep while you're writing the paper, you're the one that's investing in your time, in yourself, so that perseverance, that persistence that you're developing, that thick skin that you're developing, that's what's going to take you down the road, right? So you'll love mom for being up with you, but really mom being up with you will be those tender memories that you'll have, that thing that you'll feel for her when you're always thinking about your level of appreciation for her. But the thick skin that you develop, the persistence that you developed, that is because you invested in yourself to see yourself through it, which includes that perseverance. Forming healthy learning habits. A lot of times when we, as learners, we might find these like shortcuts that we take. The shortcuts may get us through in the short term, but it's the long-term learning, healthy learning habits, like showing up for class on time, every time, like asking your professor for assistance and then showing up when your professor gives you the time, and then taking their advice. Those are healthy learning habits that will help you along the way and give you the long-term, larger result than those short-term, let me just skim this paper 5 minutes before class, get in so I can be able to have this conversation, and really you're not having any meaningful contribution to that conversation. Discipline is extremely important. If you don't create a routine for yourself, right? If you don't say to yourself, listen, for the next month or so, I'm going to have to get up every morning from 7 to 8, even though my class is not till 9, from 7 to 8, because I wake the kids up at 8 to get my work done. That's what that means. It means disciplining yourself to get up. It means disciplining yourself to not go out and do the things that you want to do. So that sacrifice and discipline work hand in hand. It means saying, for now, temporarily, I'm going to let this thing go that I really, really want to do, because my attention needs to be here so that I can complete whatever this thing is that I need to complete, because it's a short-term sacrifice, right? You're not going to be doing this forever. So out of this research, I developed something called the 5 Ps. And I think you guys have, some of you have participated in sessions where I've shared the 5 Ps that I developed out of my dissertation research. But really quickly, the 5 Ps are purpose, planning, perspective, and persistence. And we've gone through a lot of them. It's really important for you to write that purpose down. And I try to write it down in ink, right? What's your purpose for this particular thing? You can have multiple going on at a time, but what's your purpose for this thing that you're doing? Whether it's your associates, your master's, your doctorate, whatever it is, what's your purpose? What are you trying to achieve? And then you want to plan for your purpose. You want to figure out what are the steps you need to take in order to achieve this purpose. That you might want to write in pencil, because that requires flexibility. Remember, guys, this is a program I should have been done with 5 years max. Maximum 5 years. It took me 11 years to complete. I went through a million pencil erasers, rewriting the plan, redoing the plan, simply because it just needed me to be that flexible. The perspective you need to have on the work that you want to do is one where you get to determine for yourself, do I want to have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? A growth mindset says there's no such thing as failure. There's success, and then there's learning for success, right? When we think about failure, a lot of times the things that stop us in our track and the things that we're embarrassed to admit to people because we have failed, we stop ourselves from moving forward because we put such a negative spin on not accomplishing the goal. When you think about failure, think about it as an opportunity for you to learn about what you need for success, right? So you tried it way A didn't work. Okay, way B, I'm coming for you. Wait, C, get ready, get ready, get ready. Wait, D, look, C may not work out. So get yourself together, D, so we can make this happen. That is a growth mindset, right? That's saying that, listen, I may not be a strong math learner, but I'm definitely someone who knows how to use a network. Whenever I have to work on grading for my students every semester, when I pull together the curriculum, I call my sister, she the math nerd. I say, Weddy, listen, okay, we got to work on this. How I'm dividing up these numbers here for this. She says, okay, how many assessments do you have? How many this, how many that? And so we go through it. And so then she says, okay, this is what your grading should look like so that it can equal what you need it to equal. Do you think I'm embarrassed about that? Honey, please, no, because they still paying me. They don't know that I talked to Weddy about this here math. No. So you figure out where you need your support, figure out where you need your network, figure out where you need to get your mind together over where you have growth areas, and then work on those. Keep improving those. Persistence. They're going to tell you no. Somebody's going to tell you no. Somebody's going to tell you no many times. But at some point in your life, you're going to get a yes. I got a lot of no's along the way. A lot of no's. And then I started getting my yeses. I started getting them in like double, multiplied, tripled, quadrupled until I was finished, until they gave me that paperwork in Greek. I don't know, it's Latin. No, it's not Greek, it's Latin. It's because I went to a Catholic school. So I said, okay, y'all, can y'all give me the English version? Because what I'm not fitting to do is learn Latin to be able to read this degree. But the degree says that I'm finished and I earned it. The final P is peace. Figure out what routine you need to create for yourself to ground you in pursuing your purpose. Things will come. Life will hit you with all kinds of things, and it will try to throw you, derail you. I told you, I showed you all of those things that came my way, right? But if you have a ritual, if you have a routine, if you have a practice, something that grounds you, that centers you, that brings you back to whole, those are the things that will help keep you focused. For me, it's prayer because of my faith. It's prayer, it's going to service, it's listening to gospel music, it's meditating, it's reading the Bible, it's talking to friends, talking to my family. It was even talking to a therapist. But figure out those things that can bring you peace. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and now we're going to talk. So let's talk.
First of all, I want to say, woo, thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. And like I said before, I learned something new every time you speak. So thank you. Go ahead, Mo. I know you were up.
Thank you, Stephanie.
No, I also just want to second that. Actually, when I looked at all the challenges, I had like a lump in my throat, thinking that it was just crushing. And the fact that you were able to just like see it through and is like astonishing and not surprising. But what did you do your dissertation on?
So I looked at, so I said before that I used my lyrical voice. So I looked at using autoethnography. I looked at how women of color have used their faith to overcome barriers that would have caused them to not complete their programs. And the thing that was overwhelming in the study was that all of the women said, they got to this point where they said, you know what? They just had a belief that God brought them to this opportunity. And if he brought them to this opportunity, there was just no way that they could not be successful. They just had to figure out how to be successful, right? So it's about mindset. I think all of the barriers, you're right, Mo, they came fast and furious. But because there was a true belief that I was doing something that was greater than me, that something greater than me would be able to get me through, right? I distinctly remember when I went in, and I was in Immaculata at the time. I went into class the day after I had to go down to the courthouse to file for a protection from abuse order against my ex-husband and a divorce at the same time. And he put his hands on me one time, and for me, one time is more than enough, right?
Absolutely.
And so I remember going to my professor that evening and saying to her, listen, I know we had an assignment due today, but I've just been, mentally a little shook because this happened. And she said, well, Keima, do you need to take a leave of absence? Are you April, are you crazy? Girl, all this time behind me, you know my story. You were in the interview. No, ma'am, we're not taking time. Just give me to the weekend so I can get myself together and I will get this paper in. And it's kind of like that, Mo. You know, it's like you take a moment where you recognize the stuff is tough, right? But if we ever allow the stuff that is tough to stop us, we can get really stopped, right? We can get really stuck. And I just had to figure out how to keep praying as I kept writing. And I remember that weekend I was crying and writing, crying and writing, crying and writing, because a lot of the things that came out that caused him to assault me, you know, they were just, it was about betrayal and infidelity. And so it's like you're dealing with a lot of things in your mind all at the same time while you're trying to focus on this paper. So I have great empathy for our students when they're trying to get their work in, but a lot of things are happening in their life at the same time and they feel like it's an impossible feat. But I say to them, this is when you have to employ compartmentalization. You have to figure it out. Not that you shouldn't deal with it. At some point, you're going to have to deal with it, because if you don't, you'll stroke out. You'll have a heart attack. You'll have some way it will manifest itself. But at this moment in time, get this particular thing done and then go cry. Get this particular thing done as much as you can, and then go to your therapist. Get this particular thing done and then go fall out. Go eat all the hamburgers you want to eat. Do all the ice cream you want to do. Whatever it is you need to do, do it then. Get yourself together and then come back, because we have to go. Because if we get stuck in that space, then we will have allowed all of the days where we were supposed to be focused on the goal to be days that are stuck together in a clump. And then after the pain point is gone, after that's gone, we have nothing left to show for it. We have a big old clump of mess, right? Yeah. Leslie, did you have a question?
I just wanted to say how inspiring it is just to hear the honesty and the pain that you've been through, and yet using it in such a positive way. And I just hope we can do that for our students, you know, to help them to see that and to just turn it around and make it the positive part of their story. But it just, your honesty is just overwhelming, because you don't hear people that are willing to share, you know, as much as you are, and yet show where it took you. And that's, I think everybody walks around with pain that they've been through, you know, if you've lived long enough. And yet sometimes you feel, well, I can't really share that because, you know, I'm in a professional setting, and yet you share it in such a way that it's inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, you know, you guys do an amazing job with your students, right? I think Act 101 is really, it's a model for how you can work with a student in authentic ways, right? Recognizing that everybody just comes with baggage to the table. The challenge is to figure out how to turn your baggage from plastic bags to Louis Vuittons. And I'm not a capitalistic person at all, right? But right, you know how you're in foster care and they pack your stuff up in these like garbage bags and they're like, okay, it's time to go, right? And so it's like, rather than being stuck in the garbage bag phase, you're just like, I'm just gonna have my clutch. Like I've reduced my stuff, now I got a little purse, you know? And so, and the only way you can manage that is if you shift your perspective on that. I remember talking to a neighbor recently, and he was saying, wow, you just have such an amazing life. But we have never talked about my life. I think he looks at me from the outside in and just assumes, right? And so I'm like, child, listen, this was work to get here. And he said, well, I don't think God really likes me because I had a tough life because of X, Y, and Z things, right? And I said, well, I think if you continue to tell yourself that God doesn't like you because you've had these difficult things happen to you, I think you will definitely feel like you're not liked, you're not loved, and you feel like these barriers are things that you'll never be able to overcome. I think the trick is not to get stuck in the place of thinking that it is you alone, and that it is you to destroy you. These things are not designed to destroy you. They are just the reality of life. That's what they are. They just are the realities of life. And some of these realities suck. Like they are horrible realities. But that still doesn't mean that you can't move on into an amazing world from these horrible realities. But it starts here. It's all about here, because here will seed here. And once it's seeded here, the heart will produce what you end up doing, right? So you just want to constantly check what's happening in those spaces.
And the other thing I just wanted to say real quickly, and I think this is for every student who's on here, is that sometimes you do need to go to an instructor and say, look, I had a really bad couple days. I had somebody that did that this semester. She took a 3-day break because she was going through a lot of things and came back and got a B+ in the course. So, you know, it just, I think sometimes people aren't aware of how many options there are. It's not always going to happen that you will find instructors who say, no, you know, I'm not going to budge, but more than not, it's worth trying that.
Absolutely true, Leslie. Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So that was a great lesson for everybody, whatever level they're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cheryl, the doggy is he's a Boston Terrier, and we call him Buster to Boston, because again, I'm from New York, so Buster rhymes, but Buster to Boston. Yeah. So he's 4 months old, and he's extremely like clingy and emotional, and I'm like, how did I end up with this dog? Like, I need you to be more independent, dude. But you know, so
that's puppies, right? I mean,
that's puppies.
That's what puppies are like.
That's what they do. Yeah.
So for me, Keima, I mean, I have so many takeaways from that, but I can absolutely relate. I'm not sure if you know, but I didn't even really know. I'm from Brooklyn, New York as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So I can relate. And that's why I wrote in the chat when you were saying a lot of things about your childhood growing up in public schools and things like that in Brooklyn. It's not that easy. And although, like, you know, my story is like so similar, it was obviously because of different reasons, right? So my reasoning is I always grew up getting, you know, messed with, and I don't consider it, you know, bully. I always tell my kids, like, we don't have a bully mindset. We don't get bullied. All right, people try to mess with us, but you know, we do what we have to do to defend ourselves whenever we have to. So, you know, for me, it was the opposite. It was like, oh, you know, I was little. I was always tiny. I'm 5 foot right now, 130 pounds. So I'm not a big person. So I was always little. So I got picked on for that. And I got picked on, obviously, for being light skinned. And I got picked on for, you know, of course, liking to read, right? That was one of my favorite things to do, was read and write poems. And just different things. So I remember I could relate to the stories in the bathroom, getting, you know, beat up and trying to fight back 5 different people. But in thinking about all of these different things that were so relatable, I never really thought to tell my story in a way like that. Because I never really thought anybody would be that interested.
Listen, you must tell the story, because just like Leslie said, like a lot of times people don't tell the story, but I think when we tell the story, we first of all, we shame the devil, right? I think we shame that thing of like embarrassment and shame and fear and all of those things that people would like to put up in front of you know, those walls, and you tear it down right away, because you're like, no, we got a similar story.
And I've always been an open book, but never like in a public setting like that. Like, you know, always to the people closest to me. Like, I know I've shared plenty of stories with, you know, like my coworkers Mo and Leslie, you know, when we've sat together during lunch and different times. So I've always pretty much been an open book, but now I have a good idea of kind of how I want to tell my story and maybe how I want to put it. I'm actually in the process of trying to self-publish my first children's book. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm going through the coaching right now. So I'm excited about that. So I'm thinking about, and I've been thinking about my next move from the children's book, and I wanted to do something for the youth, because that's been my passion for over 15 years, working with youth, just kind of guiding them. You know, I've had a rough childhood, similar to you, rough upbringing and things like that, not having, you know, my parents really around. So just always being able to relate to the youth and certain things that they've been through has always, you know, like been my strength. So being able to put it into words where I can kind of like write a book or some sort of poetry book or something like that, I'm thinking about now that I heard your story and how
Do
you
it.
were able to relate it. Yeah.
Do
So
it.
thank you for the inspiration.
Somebody is waiting to hear the story. Somebody is waiting to feel like, oh my God, somebody
Absolutely.
else went through this and they survived. I can't do. So do it. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the inspiration. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. So let's see, what are we running on time? Oh, look, we're not doing bad on time. This is great. So do we have any more questions, comments? Anyone want to share anything before we come to a closing?
Yes, I do. Hello, everyone. This is
Hi,
Antoinette. You have inspired me because it's funny that Miss Leslie, you're right on everything. I had currently went through so much, and Miss Leslie, everyone in Keys is fantastic because I had to do some networking. And after I've been through so many professors that were kind of tough, and it was to a point where I was crying when, at my age, I'm 47 years old, going back to school. I mean, I know you're never too young to learn or too old to learn. But since returning back to school, it's been some difficulties with some things. But after taking English, which was last semester, it was rough because I thank God for him. He helped me to grow and to learn from it. And what happened was I had 3 essays to fix and I was overwhelmed. I was in tears. It's been many times where I cried, and I thank God that I was able to reach out and able to find the tools to get the help and the resources that I needed to go forward. First, my grade, I did fix everything because I didn't know how to indent. I'm not ashamed to say it. Indenting was my problem. Reading has always been my number one thing I can do. Writing, all that I'm good at. Spelling, but when it came to math was not my thing. Still ain't. But to make a long story short, I've learned so much. After going through this class with English, I learned how to indent. I had to I just kept working on it. Okay. It's like when you chisel at something, you're going to get results. But if you don't work on it, you won't get results. So I had to find ways to reach out to Ms. Leslie. I mean, everybody, it's just so much support that I had gotten from the Keys that I never knew that was there until going through this. So after going through this, what I'm making my point is after going through all this, I had to take a course, which is college strategies, to learn to get to do better. And I got better. So I started after going through that, I made sure I was on top of my work. And I just kept grinding, kept going hard. And I finally finished with an A. And I have never did that. It was just so amazing. But I want to keep going with this thing because you inspired me. I don't want to just stop at my associates. I want to keep going until I get all 3 of my degrees. And I think I will be satisfied with that. But it's just, it brings tears to my eyes because I worked so hard because I can't give up. Like you, I'm sorry, I'm just emotional because it has been very emotional. And it's funny, I'm studying it now for my law ethics class. I'm grinding because I'm not trying to give up on anything. I really want this for me. Yeah. It's not for anyone else, it's for me. Yeah. And this is for students that's on here. Don't give up on your dream. Yeah. Keep it moving. Get the help you need. And there's so much resources that Montgomery offers. Take advantage of it. They have tutoring. Take advantage of it. But most importantly, take your education seriously because we are living in the last and perilous times. You see the pandemic. You see how people are struggling. So getting a secondary education, I'm happy with that. I'm okay with that. But right now it's about getting what I need. But I'm just going to sit down because I'm telling you, you inspired me so much. I just had to say something because I almost forgot about this. I said, oh, wait a minute, we have a Zoom thing. Let me jump on real quick, see what's going on. But I just thank you for sharing your story because you really inspired me to just keep it moving and keep doing what I love doing. I love education.
That's it. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate hearing that from you. And And I think the word that you chose to describe what you're doing, that grind, you know, that's it. It's grinding.
Yeah.
Right. And it is hard work, and you will be making sacrifices, and you will have to persevere and persist, and you will be asking for help from all kinds of places. All of those things are just a part of the grind. But at the end of the day, the person who you did this for, yes, it's you. It is always you. But the people who are watching you are also the people who will be blessed by this, right? One of the most beautiful images I saw recently on Facebook, in a Facebook group that I'm in with other doctoral students, is this woman. It's a woman's group. Is this woman who was hugging her daughter, and she had a mini doctoral robe made for her daughter, and so she, you know, she was leaning over, hugging her, and she said, "I did it for me because of you." And that's exactly right. Like, yes, we are doing it for ourselves, but we are also doing it for all the people who are watching us, who are hoping and praying and wondering if they could do it for themselves too. We're doing it to be a witness, right? That this is possible. It's possible for me. It's possible for you. So I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah. So is it Otito? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Otito, and then you and Tasia. Is it Tasia or Tasha?
It's Tasia.
Tasia. You and Tasia both said.
Yeah, we met.
Yeah, yeah. You both said that you can relate to what Antoinette was saying about it being a tough grind, but you know, it is tough. And computer science, that's no joke. Criminal justice, that's no joke. You know, it really is serious work that you have ahead of you. You absolutely can do it. And the days when you feel like you can't do it, those are the days that you have to push even harder, because those are the days that are, you know, if you just get past that day, you'll realize that you were that much closer to the end, but that much closer to the breakthrough. There's something that happens when you get really close to the end. There's something that happens when you get close to the point where you can see the finish line. And you can either say, oh my God, I can see it. And now all of a sudden, you don't have a problem staying up late at night or waking up early in the morning, right? You can do those things to get the work done. Or you see it and you get scared. And you're like, what's next? Because even though this has been crazy, you can manage the devil, you know, you can manage this crazy, but what comes after the next, what comes after this, what comes after my success, right, in accomplishing this? And so sometimes students will sabotage themselves because they are afraid of achieving that level of success. And that's when I encourage you. I don't know if you guys listen to the Wellness Wednesdays that David and I do once a month, but the last Wellness Wednesday we did really was about self-sabotage, because that's when we encourage you to push even harder, right? To make sure that you are intentionally acting in your best interest, and recognize, you know how when you're on a diet and you're like, I'm gonna show y'all what my son just brought me. I can't stand him. I can't stand him. He brought this coffee cake, cupcake. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it. I don't happen to be on a diet, but the times when I am watching what I'm eating, that's when you hear all the thoughts in your head about, oh, it's not that bad. You can start again tomorrow. You can start again. Just go ahead and do this. And my start again tomorrow doesn't happen until 2 months later, because all the days in between now and the 2 days, it was always, I'll start again tomorrow, start again tomorrow, start again tomorrow. The same thing can happen to you when it comes to school. Like, oh, I'll get to work on that paper. Oh, I'll get to, and the next thing you know, you have 5 different papers from 5 different classes that are all due around the same time. But because you kept saying, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow, I'll get to it tomorrow, I'll get to it tomorrow, you are now jammed up. And then the pain of being jammed up means you may or may not get this thing done, right? And then you end up maybe failing the grade or needing to take an incomplete, and then you feel horrible and you feel embarrassed and all these other things come up. And so it's really important to push through when you get that feeling of, push through that. Even if it means I'm just going to work on this for 1 hour, at least put that hour in, because that's far better than not doing anything at all. Yeah. I hear you, Tasia. But it does
So
get better.
good. So many gems.
It does get better. Yeah, it's leaving Monco, because it's a little bubble and we have so many supports around you guys to protect you and to help you and to guide you and to encourage you. But we don't go away. Number one, we're still here. So you can still reach out to the people you have relationships with. They will still be willing to advise you and support you and encourage you. But the other reality is that you've developed the skills that you need to be successful. Trust in that. You didn't get to the place where you can complete if you didn't develop those skills. So you have them in you. You have them in you. So.
Absolutely. We all have them in us. We just have to do the work. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. Yep.
Yeah.
But it is 5:05. I don't want to take up too much of anyone's time. And I gotta go cook dinner myself for these 3 children.